dams. I wonder what causes ice dams. Do you know what causes ice dams? Do I know what causes ice dams? I'll tell you what, it has been a question many, many times over the years. Some people say they have no idea. Other people just assume that it's normal to have massive amounts of icicles and chunks of ice building up on the roof. It's actually not normal and it is completely correctable. So let's get into it. Okay, I was teasing you with that picture. I wanted to actually start with a separate one. So ice buildup is not normal. Well, to a certain extent on your roof, ice buildup is not normal. Let's look at this picture here. If you have massive amounts of ice on your roof and icicles and all the rest in huge chunks, it is not normal. It is excessive. It's going to cause water damage, structural roof damage, and the most noticeable in the short term is ice dam, where the edge of the roof dams up and the water physically can't drain anymore. And now you have water dripping into your living room ceiling or bedroom ceiling. That's not normal. That is correctable. So if you're seeing anything like this or have seen anything like this on your home or your business before, not normal. It can be corrected. So let's get into the science. The building science of it is actually very, very interesting. So the single cause of ice dams, there are over a dozen factors that contribute to the formation of ice dams. Fundamentally, only one condition must be met. Only one condition must be met in order to form ice dams. A temperature difference between the area above being 32 above freezing Fahrenheit, or and the edge, the eave, if you will, the overhang being below freezing. So whether you're talking Celsius or Fahrenheit, it doesn't matter. If you have melting temperatures on the main part of your roof and freezing temperatures on the edge of your roof, you will form ice dams and you will eventually have these huge icicles and these huge chunks hanging off your house, which will cause damage. They large, in case you haven't noticed, I should have put a news article up. There actually have been large ice chunks, icicles that have actually fallen off and killed people. They are dangerous, but they can also cause roof leaks and water damage into the home. So let's go to the next slide. Six warning causes, warning signs of ice dams: icicles forming on the edge of your roof with or without gutters. It happens in both cases. Ice beginning to build at the top of the gutter, ice beginning to come through the soffit. So look at this picture here. Let me zoom in on it a little bit more. If you're seeing water back here, I should have did a larger cursor so you can see this, so I could circle it. If you're seeing water over here, guys, behind the siding or on the siding or under the soffits, dripping on the soffits, the overhang, that's a huge, huge red flag. Don't just sleep on that one. That one needs to be dealt with. Now, short term, there are ways to get the ice off, and you've seen people up there hacking with the hammers and hitting it with shovels and trying to pick at the ice. It is a dangerous, horrible, horrible job. As a homeowner, I would not advise you to get onto your roof. Ladders are the number one cause of injury with homeowners, so I wouldn't get on there. There are services you can hire that will remove the ice for you, and there are these melting, some people call them hockey pucks. It's not salt. Don't throw salt up on your roof. That will cause damage. It will rust the gutters and the drip edge on the roof. It'll cause all sorts of problems and kill the grass. Don't use salt, but they do make these tablets. It's hydrogen chloride, I believe, that is made to do safe ice melting, and you can throw them up on the roof. You don't even have to get on a ladder. You can just throw them up on the roof, and that is one way to remove it. Here's another professional service with hot water to melt that ice chunk off. So all of that is after the fact. All of that kind of work to remove ice dams on your roof is after you've already had the problem and now you're in an emergency situation. I've seen ice dams so bad in somebody's living room. This fella called me and he wanted advice. We go into the living room, and at the top, the water was bubbled and blistered, and the paint and the ceiling were coming down. We actually took a pail and popped a hole and just watched the water just drain out, and then it relieved some of the pressure. So it's quite dramatic. It can be really really a problem. So don't sleep on it. If you have ice dam problems on your house, get with it quickly. Now, another way, this is a way to prevent it. We're getting to the progressively, hang with me, we're progressively getting to the steps to prevent it. So this is called a roof rake. They're sold all over the Midwest and any place that has snow loads. in the country. Roof rakes are inexpensive rakes that you can buy at any of the home improvement stores. They are aluminum telescoping poles, lightweight, and you after a snowfall, don't even wait till the next day if you can avoid it. But after a snowfall, get up there and pull down by dragging that on the edge of your roof the last 3 foot or 4 foot of snow. You don't have to go right up to the peak, and you probably can't get up that high anyways. But pull off the last few feet of snow off the edge of the roof before it freezes. That's the key. You're doing it before it freezes, before it forms ice, to prevent the ice dams from forming, because taking away all that moisture. You're taking away all that content, all that water content. You're just pulling it away before it forms ice. Roof rakes are a good solution. We see it in lots of people's garages. Lots of people use them. Do you remember that is a conductive metal pole? So when you get next to the part of your house that has an overhead electrical, if you do have overhead electrical, be careful. That is definitely electrocution hazard. So if you have overhead electrical and not underground, be very, very careful with where you're putting that pole and where you're placing it. This is another option. So this is not so much labor. This is easy. One install once and done. This is heat tape, heat wire, whatever you want to call it. These are also sold at all the home improvement stores, Lowe's, Menards, Home Depots. They can be ordered online. So this is an electric option. This is heat wire that gets installed in a zigzag pattern, as you see in the picture, on the eave edge of the roof where the ice forms, and you plug it in at the beginning of winter and you unplug it at the end of winter. It is option. It does work. I've seen it work all the time. It does work. It's pretty much guaranteed, but it is an expensive option. You're plugging in a hot wire. By the way, it is UL listed. It's completely safe to use outdoors and in the rain and on your roof and against your house. It's UL rated. It's fine. But you are plugging in a hot wire in the middle of winter. Can you imagine what your electrical bill does when you have this? It's very, very high. So it's an option. I like it for sometimes an older house where you have like a dormer and a valley that comes together and there's no way to get the ice off. And long term, it's always a buildup, in this one area. It's always a buildup right here, or it's always a buildup over the front door. If we know exactly where the problem is, that's a good option too, electrical heat tape. But it's still not the long term solution where you can live with it forever. This is an installation here of electric heat wire. Um, it definitely can be installed by a do-it-yourselfer, but because you're working on ladders on the high areas potentially, if you have a ranch, I would say do it yourself. If you have a two-story, maybe hire it out, and it can be by contractors, general handyman, or electricians. And they are installing it per manufacturer's instructions there in the zigzag pattern. Is your best bang for your buck, and they have these clips that just clip right onto the shingles. Usually in the Midwest where I am, they will also run that electric heat wire down the gutter, if you have it down the downspout of the gutter, to make sure that doesn't freeze as well. Because sometimes people have done heat wire on the edge of the roof, but the gutter is still one solid block of ice. And now the water has no place to run off, and you still can get water damage dripping inside the house. Okay. All right. I teased it here. Here we go. The number one reason you have ice dams and huge ice chunks on the side of your roof is you don't have enough insulation in the attic. So this is the long-term solution, guys. The long-term solution is get more insulation up in the attic. So this is a picture of a very, very low, poorly insulated attic. If they were to add triple that amount of insulation, it would keep the heat in the house and not melting the snow, running down and refreezing. So let me reframe that. The ice dams, if you didn't hear it earlier, are forming because you are losing heat through the house, through the attic, through the insulation, melting the roof. You're keeping your roof above freezing, and all that water, all that material, water is running down the shingles, refreezes at the eaves because it's still winter, it's still cold outside, and then that ice just starts backing up and backing up. The future water has no place to run off to. It leaks right inside your house. So get more insulation in there. That will solve your problem. Here's a cutaway slide of what it looks like. With more insulation, you want to insulate to the edge of your roof there, to the edge of the house, the structural framing of the house. That's where you want to go. You do not want to insulate into the soffits. Uh, don't put insulation into the soffits. Now you're blocking up venting. You're having all sorts of problems. In addition, you're trying to help yourself and now you're hurting yourself. So you can use soffit baffles if you need to. That's that white material right here to hold that insulation back, so it stops at the edge of the stud wall of the edge of the house, but the roof overhang can still continue and you still have fresh air. So, two things: if you're having ice dam buildup and ice dam problems, more insulation and more ventilation in your attic will stop that, and your ice problems will be gone. So, more ventilation because we want the fresh air coming in. We want that attic to be close to the outside environment as far as temperature. And if you are losing a lot of heat through poor insulation, that will vent it out, and you'll still be okay. But more insulation and then more ventilation is kind of the 1-2 punch that will take care of that issue. Here is a homeowner doing their own insulation. It can absolutely be done. He is over plaster, wood lath plaster, so be careful where you step. You may just have drywall. Also, I see some knob and tube electrical wiring right here. So with knob and tube electrical wiring, that kind of has to breathe. That's designed to be exposed to the air. That's going to be like a pre-1930s house. So you do want to consult an electrician if you have knob and tube wiring that's still active. It might be cut away, but if it's still active, you don't want to do insulation right over that. But in most cases, you're not going to see that, or you're just going to have modern Romex electrical wiring. Throw as much insulation up there as you want. Absolutely. Here's some more do-it-yourselfers adding insulation. It doesn't matter if it's fiberglass, cellulose, rock wool, blown-in insulation. There's a lot of options out there. They all do a good job. The manufacturers will give you a stat sheet showing you the R factor for every inch, what the R factor is. Of course, the higher the R factor, the better, the more it will insulate. Um, Generally, if homeowners are doing their own projects, rolled insulation is considered easy for the do-it-yourselfer. Here they're doing the first course perpendicular with the ceiling joist, and they're doing the second course perpendicular to that, so there's no air gaps and they're not missing any spots, so they're crisscrossing them. That's good practice there. Yeah, rolled bat insulation like that is good for the do-it-yourselfer because it's easy. You're just rolling it out, keeping it fluffy. But it might physically, the rolls might not fit up through your little attic hatch. So you have a little attic hatch, they might not physically fit up there. So you might have to go to a blown in product like this, a spray in cellulose or fiberglass. I think this one's actually fiberglass, the light fluffy stuff. And you can rent that blower machine from the home improvement store. Say you buy the bags of insulation, doesn't matter if it's cellulose or loose fiberglass from the home improvement stores. They will let you use their blower machine for like a $50 deposit. That's it. That's hardly nothing. And you'll get your deposit back after you return it. So that's a good option. It takes two people. It takes one in the attic, minimal, with a mask and blowing it into the correct locations. And the other person is down outside in the driveway feeding the machine, cutting open the bags and feeding the machine so it can blow in. And that's popular with cellulose and loose fiberglass. Either one, they both do a good job. And the manufacturer's label will tell you how many inches you need to achieve a certain R factor. The higher the R factor, the better. Where I'm in the Midwest, okay, so this is a finished one here. You can see how good that looks. That looks fantastic. Where I'm in the Midwest, that's cellulose. That's probably the most common I see today. It's good. Keep it light and fluffy. Don't compress it. Don't step on it. Keep it light and fluffy. It's fine. It is treated to be resistant. Cellulose is treated to be resistant. By the way, it's very sustainable. It's ground up like newspaper and stuff like that, but it is treated to be fire resistant and rodent resistant, I believe. If I'm saying that right, it might be a certain type of rodent, but I think it is treated to be rodent resistant as well as fire retardant as well. But it is sustainable. Um, that's what a finished attic looks like. That looks good. Now, in my part of the country in the Midwest, they'll show you zones. You can get these EPA recommended zones for insulation totals. So I'm in zone 5. They're recommending in the attics R38 to R60. Now, the code for my area is R30. Now, please remember, building code is considered an absolute minimum. If you build less than code, it's illegal, right? So that's the absolute minimum. So building code in my area is R30. Kind of crappy. You want to exceed that. So I would say if you're in the Midwest or in these mid areas of the country, go at least to an R38, but higher is better. Higher is always better. You will get your money back. You'll save on your utility costs. So why not put more insulation in there for sure, guys? And then here's a finished picture of a attic with loose blown in fiberglass, and you can see they've achieved the 12 inches of R30. There might be some areas that are R38 with the R14 there. It just depends. They stapled these up first, I imagine. So it just depends where you're taking your sample, but you go by your average when you're doing those R tests there. And the reason why you're adding more insulation into the attic is to stop the snow from melting prematurely on the roof, running down and refreezing on the eaves where it's always cold if it's winter. So this picture actually teaches us a lot. After a snowstorm, if you look up on your roof, you want to see thick, fluffy snow, just like this picture. That's what it's supposed to look like. That means you are not losing heat through the ceiling, through the attic, and melting the snow, and then going to have ice dams and ice problems. So that's what your roofs are supposed to look like in the picture. Another good take on that is um, if you look after a snowstorm, maybe the next 24, 48 hours, look at their neighboring houses too. If you see the neighboring houses still have a good snowpack on their roof and yours is partially melted or halfway melted, you have a problem. That means they have great insulation and you have crappy insulation, and it's going to cause you higher utility costs. So you're throwing your money away, and it's going to cause ice dam problems. And like for instance, next time you replace the roof, the sheathing, the roof decking at the eaves is all going to be trashed and damaged, and water damage, and up the valley it might be damaged. So look for that ice pack after a snowstorm. If other houses around you still have plenty of snow and your roof is melting off, that's a problem. That's a great indication that you need more insulation in that attic for sure. Hey, home improvement people, I do these live streams and videos every week. We do a regular video every week, and then we do a live stream every week on Sunday. If I missed you and you catch me on the replay, please comment down below. Let me know if you have any questions whatsoever. Share with me your home improvement questions or what projects you're planning to do or taking on. I love to answer questions. I answer everybody's comments within 24 hours. Have a wonderful Sunday, guys, and we will see you next